For my research project, I chose to study the relationship between caffeine consumption and the amount of sleep that undergraduate students get. I chose this topic because I wanted to find out if a person who drinks more caffeine lacks sleep more often than the person who doesn't regularly drink caffeine. I based this topic off research articles that I will talk about that suggest that caffeine can help with alertness, but there is a point when it will start to negatively affect the individual. I started with two research questions in mind. The first was, is caffeine intake related to the average sleep a person gets at night in undergraduate college students? The second question I had was, does how late in a day a person drinking caffeine affect sleep deprivation in undergraduate college students? For both of these questions, the exposure is related to caffeine intake. The outcome is sleep quality or amount of sleep. The population studied is undergraduate students in this class. Background information. There was such a broad range of information and studies done on this subject. One study I read suggested that nocturnal use of caffeine leads to increased worrying at night and sleeplessness. For me personally, I felt that this was true, and so I thought it was a really interesting point to include. Related to this was another report that having caffeine 6 hours or less before sleep will start to disrupt the quality of sleep that the person gets. With caffeine intake closer and closer to bedtime, that disruption starts to increase more and more. Another study reported that in teenagers who actually get the recommended 8 to 10 hours of sleep at night drink a lot less caffeine. Though in the article it wasn't conclusive as to whether the teenagers didn't drink caffeine because they weren't as tired, or they got more sleep because they drank less caffeine. Lastly, those who regularly drink caffeinated coffee had a decrease in the total amount and quality of sleep they were able to get. This is what I had in mind when shaping the questions for my survey. For this slide, the methods that were used was an observational study using a Qualtrics survey. The population for this study are undergraduate students enrolled in this class, Health 382. The survey was administered by an anonymous link to the survey on Blackboard. Students provided informed consent by acknowledging their consent before beginning the survey. For the first results table that I wanted to share, I compared the question asking if the person has at least one coffee, energy drink, or caffeinated soda in an average day, and their level of agreement on the statement that states that they feel tired in the middle of the day, rated on a 5-point scale, with 5 being strongly agree and 1 being strongly disagree. I wanted to compare these results because it compares something that is tangible, having at least one caffeinated drink a day, and something that is more based on how they feel. These results and findings showed a chi-square value of 16.85 and a p-value of 0. If we use 0.05 as the cutoff, then these results would be statistically significant. This means that there is a relationship between having at least one caffeinated drink a day and their opinion on how tired they feel during the middle of the day. However, because of the very small sample size of 37, one would need to be cautious in interpreting the results of this p-value. This bar graph shows the answers given to the question asking what time of day do you drink the most caffeine? 17 reported drinking caffeine mostly in the morning, with 10 reporting to drink it mostly in the afternoon or evening. 10 also reported as to not drinking caffeine regularly. This was an important question because of the background information I talked about earlier, that the nocturnal use of caffeine leads to increased worrying at night and sleeplessness. This graph shows the results to the question asking, in an average night, how many hours of sleep do you get? 91.89% reported as getting less than 8 hours of sleep if you combine the answers to less than 7 hours and 7 to 8 hours. Only 8.11% reported as getting more than 8 hours of sleep. This is an important question that tells a lot about how these students may function due to a lack of sleep. This cross-tab analysis compared the questions asking if a person drinks at least one coffee, energy drink, or caffeinated soda a day and how many hours of sleep do they get at night. These results showed a chi-square value of 3.72 and a p-value of 0.16. While these results are not statistically significant, there could be an interesting relationship between these two variables, and larger sample size can give more accurate results. In conclusion, from some of the data that I got, it is suggested that there is a relationship between having at least one caffeinated drink a day and how tired the person feels during the middle of the day. There is a relationship between lack of sleep and caffeine intake, but it's difficult with a small sample size to know what that relationship might actually mean. Results show that most students consume caffeine in the morning, which research shows has less of an effect on sleep than drinking it in the evening. There's a lot of further research that can be done for this subject. The first thing would be an interesting thing to do a similar study with those who work and don't go to school and see if their sleep time is increased or not. Lastly, I would want to be able to research what age people normally start drinking caffeine and what is the cause. Is it due to social norms or the need to stay awake longer? And does this start their decline in sleep quality or not? My references. Thank you.